And we're just in the process of preparing the Zoom recording.
Meeting is being recorded.
We are
Alrighty.
live and ready to go.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Planning Commission on January 7th, 2026, and it is 6:02 p.m. And I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Forsberg is absent, Commissioner Sweet,
Here.
and Commissioner Kroll.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have 3 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I will move, Ms. Allison, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. And could I get a second? Commissioner.
Second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Kroll. And if the clerk could take the roll, please.
This is for the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweet,
Yes,
and Commissioner Kroll.
Yep.
thank you. And I've been asked by the clerk if we could delay the approval of the minutes until February because there's some information that needs to be added.
Yes, my apologies. I was not at the last meeting, so the minutes that are included are there, but they are, I noticed, a little bit incomplete. So I'd like to bring them back at the next meeting for approval.
Thank you. And then the next item is public comments regarding items not on the agenda.
I'll give a moment here to see if there's anybody. I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time for
Okay.
items not on the agenda.
Okay, so there are none public hearings prior notice.
We have none.
Okay, and then consideration of site plans.
Also.
Okay. And so that brings us to commission business. And so our first item there is alternative subdivision development standards. And this is a follow-up to a conversation that we had last year, and the clerk was asked to follow up on providing information to the commission so that we could get an understanding of what possible options there might be for Seldovia. So I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to the city clerk.
Try to share my screen here. Apologies because city manager Gagel is not here tonight. So this will be kind of an initial conversation here. And for those online, would it be helpful if I share my screen?
Yes.
So you'll see on page 7, there is a little bit of a memo that I put together, just kind of going over some basic concepts that I found in my research. So this was brought up to us at the September 3rd meeting by a citizen's concern about the barriers to development in the Malcolm Spillum subdivision because of the limited access as an undeveloped right of way. And some of the issues mentioned were parking and the utility requirements, and just to get some clarification on what development standards were there and if there was a way to kind of create alternatives in the meantime until that area was able to be connected and the right of way was able to be completed. So within that, I searched for different options across Alaska and outside of that. And there's 2 things that kind of stood out. There's overlay districts and planned unit developments were 2 options that we found. So several communities use overlay districts. They include some larger communities like Juneau and Ketchikan, and they will overlay the current districts and modify some of those requirements. And that can be done over different districts, and it just has a different geographic shape to it. So if there is, for example, downtown Juneau has an overlay district in their downtown area that reduces the parking requirement. And so there are different kinds of overlay districts that have different intents towards them. And the other one is a planned unit development, which we do have a definition of in our code, but we have no process set out for it. And there are several communities that are starting to use these within Alaska to provide property owners and developers with some sort of alternative zoning and development standards. And they vary quite a bit on what those zoning and development standards are that they're seeking in those planned unit developments, but some of them are alternative trail access, reduced setbacks or parking, some open space and common areas. So I put in this memo here, you can see what our current definition of planned unit development is. It's a group or combination of certain specified residential, commercial, or industrial uses developed as a functional and integral unit in a district where some or all of the uses might not otherwise be permitted. So that's currently the definition within our code. As I said, there's no real process that is in our code or a policy that's developed out of that, but it has been used in other communities, notably Wrangell and Valdez and Homer, as a pathway for property owners to get alternative zoning regarding those things like setbacks and parking, and could be used for access requirements. So I think Valdez uses one for trail access as well. And so I provided below on the next page, just kind of an example of the different definitions that are used in those communities. So you can see there's one for Homer and for Wrangell, Seward, and Ketchikan. So I did kind of just want to provide these as well as the full code is in the packet as well from those different communities, and just get an idea if this is something that the commission was interested in pursuing further to flesh out if that would be a good option. And then there is another option that did not make it into this memo because I got the information too late. But there is in Juneau, they do have something called a transition zones, which were developed, I want to say 25 years ago, when they said these are going to be zones that eventually will be required to have these things in them, such as parking or water or utilities, but aren't quite there yet. So these are the requirements until then, but it does set in there kind of a metric for when it does reach that, it will be rezoned as this. So that was another interesting idea that that came out of that, and I could research that a little bit more as well. They've started to use those a little bit. The actual process of rezoning those, once they reach those points, I think they've kind of hit a kind of snafu a little bit on how to actually achieve that rezoning. But the idea was to have a transition thing so that you could have separate zoning requirements for now, with the intent that they would reach the applicability of the zoning district later on for the different ones.
Okay.
So that was another kind of interesting idea that came out of that.
Does anybody have any questions? Just starting out here.
Initial thoughts?
Yeah, this is Allison. Is this that area that we're talking about, the Spillum area. Could you do all the lots that are in that area? Or, I mean, does it have to be owned all by one person? To,
So here, I'll pull up the map area. Yeah, so that's in different codes, it's done different ways. So it's the idea of a plan unit development is kind of a homeowners association. So it was originally kind of intended for a one developer divides it into alternatives. One of the ones you can think about is Lands End Condos is a plan use development. And then the one behind Bennell Street Gallery in Homer that has smaller houses on units, that's also a planned use development. But it has, if you go through and look at the code examples, there are other ones where you can apply as a group of property or landowners. So all of that can be written into the different options and application processes for those plan unit developments. So it can be done either way. Most of them are for someone who has like full ownership of that properties and developing it. But it can also be done with joint ownership as well.
right, I guess Wrangles had 1 acre size minimum. Because it seems like it wouldn't be really practical to do this on just a single lot.
No, you would want to do it on either a large lot or some adjoining or contiguous lot.
And this is Randy. I guess it's kind of like this is a tool, and we could develop it in a way where it made sense for Seldovia, and I guess it would need to include, I don't know, 2 or more lots, or I mean, we could set a minimum standard to do this, but I guess the main thing is this gives the city of Seldovia a way to approach helping homeowners or landowners to do a development and then figure out how to do that in a way that made sense.
Yeah, so it would give a path, and it's not the only solution out there. It just kind of seemed to keep coming up. So I thought I'd see if that was an option that the commission wanted to pursue. And I mean, the onus is on the property owners to develop their access and, follow the zoning code, but how can we help them achieve that and make it reasonable? And make sure that, there is, some sort of water and sewer utility there for public health. So what are all these different things that we can kind of put together? And if there is, in some of the PUD codes, there are a minimum acreage, minimum lot coverage. So there are all sorts of different caveats to what can be put in there. So how many lots, if they need to have the same ownership, there needs to be an association for it. So it's just kind of one of the options that can be explored as maybe a solution to this problem.
Commissioner Kroll, did you have any thoughts?
Not yet.
Okay, and then I just wanted to recognize that Jenny Chistis is here as a member of the public, and so also just wanted to check with you just as an initial feedback or any thoughts that you might have.
And this is Jenny. And I just want to first say thank you for bringing this to the commission. It's a important part, being that there's 12 lots there that are directly impacted by this specific issue. And so first, I just want to say thank you for bringing it forward and discussing options, and want to thank Liz for doing the due diligence. There's a lot of papers here. I've been starting to review. I'm not going to get through it tonight, but I appreciate looking at what other people are doing, just what precedents are out there. Obviously, we're our own little community, but it's really good to see what's working elsewhere. So I appreciate all the work you did to do that. I also want to say thank you to Randy and Liz for giving me a reminder that it was happening tonight, talking about it. So thank you. So the first thing I wanted to say is I haven't had a chance to review all of it, so I don't have a whole bunch of specific things to say, but I did want to say that the importance to me is being in a position to be a positive be in a positive stance with property owners in Seldovia. And I mean that for the whole city, but I mean specifically in these lots where the conditions can't possibly be met at this time for the current standards. So the idea of doing an overlay district for these lots that are specifically on Malcolm and Spillum makes a whole lot of sense. And even if it's just until a time that the city has those facilities in place and those access developed. And that could be a myriad of ways, whether it's, landowners get together and propose something and work with the city to pay and do that, whether it's the city instigating. I mean, there's lots of ways to go forward with that, but to have this period of transition until a time, once water is available, then they need to connect. Once sewer is available, they need to connect. And everybody having an understanding that that's what needs to happen makes a ton of sense to me. The other issue that is a big one that I don't know that can be solved on the properties themselves as far as parking goes. Number one, because of the steepness of the hill that you go up on Malcolm. And number two, because of the size of the lots. So to me, that's a big part of the conversation in getting to a place where there's a viable parking. And I know the city owns those 3 lots right there on the corner, and potentially that could be a parking lot for this area. That's one idea that I had, was just to say that could be, prepared, and that's parking just for those property owners, and maybe there's a fee, maybe whatever. I think there's a lot more discussion to be had, but I just wanted to say thank you for doing this preliminary work, and I will definitely read through and do my best to give you some of my thoughts about that, as well as I also invited a couple of new property owners to the meeting. I don't know if they're here, but wanted to make sure that they knew that you guys are doing something about this and that you really want to work with our city, citizenship to make it possible to develop. It's beneficial to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for that. Through the chair. So the other portions of that are in the memo involve the alternatives to connecting to the water and sewer utilities and how that is accomplished, some examples in other communities. So there is a Homer, Seward, and Soldotna. They have some well and septic codes in there. It does have in our code that you can have a certified septic if you're outside of 200 feet. However, with the size of these lots, I'm not confident that there would be an ADEC approved way to do that. So there are other codes in here that have some examples of different septic codes in there. And those are, let me get to those on the screen here. So this first one is the Homer City Code here on page 14 or 13, I'm sorry. Where the sanitary system is not available, a septic system may be used so long as the septic system is installed and maintained as required by ADEC and all of their laws and provides adequate disposal of waste. So that's kind of the common theme throughout of these. But there is, going forward here, there's the same similar ones to Soldotna, and they lay out the different alternatives for different specifications that they might have different from ADEC. And then I put this link in here, and for those that are seeing it online, this is a really good reference to continue some research on our own. Is there is the Seward City Council has had this discussion before, and so some of these examples are pulled from their work session packet here from that. But this full packet, it's about 172 pages long. So I did put that link in there so that people can go and see if there's anything else that they can pull out of there that they feel is also relevant. And then we'll get to, there's also there's a portion of Homer where they can do like a septic tank that you can pump out. So I'll go down to that example here shortly. And then the other was parking examples. And so Ms. Chiss has talked about kind of having a parking lot for the entire community, which would be something kind of similar to a planned use development, because it would be common space and you would be dedicating it to that and such. So that is an example of where something like that could work. But there is, in Haynes, they have a variance process for requesting reduced parking for it. And then Ketchikan has their require off-street parking only for lots with frontage undeveloped rights of way. So that might be something to consider if we're looking at reducing that requirement for parking on the lots if they aren't accessible that time. So that's another option to forward. And then Juneau just put in a procedure here for parking reduction. And so you can get waivers and different standards here. So that's something else to look at for that reduction of parking spaces on the property. I have not really looked into what you were just discussing. So that's another process to have that joint parking lot.
I just wanted to add that I think there are quite a few different septic type systems, whether it's composting or mound. There's quite a few different systems that work good on slopes, that work good in limited confined spaces. Like you mentioned, a tank that gets pumped out, that's a little bit of a trick because of access. But I mean, I definitely think there are alternatives. And I guess my biggest request would be that if it were an area that was, you know, a special zone, like we talk about overlay district, that would negate the requirement of the citizen property owner to have to apply for a variance, apply for a change, apply to, you know, I mean, I guess less red tape, the better. That's part of what I was coming to you for, is saying, let's set the parameters that the city is good for and that works for the citizens so that they can say, yeah, we can comply with that. We can do that. And it wouldn't have to require additional paperwork for you guys to have to review and permit. I mean, it would just be a plug and play kind of situation until some time when those available services are there. I think that's super, super valuable to make it as simple and less red tape as possible. And I think that overlay with the transition clause and, like you mentioned, a DEC approved type system for what it is would be things that I believe that the property owners would be flexible and excited about. But I'm not a property owner at that property, so I can't speak for that. But I do have a couple properties listed, and these are the questions that people ask, is they want to make sure that they can develop the property and do it correctly within the guidelines of the city and still enjoy their property. So.
And do you know if any of them have contacted ADEC and gotten that far with approval?
I don't know that anyone's done that.
And then, of course, the last part of this is what's already available code is the special assessment district. So if the property owners or the local government wanted to make those improvements and put an assessment on it for those affected lots, that's also a possibility. And those property owners can apply for that. We do have a special assessment procedure in our code for water and sewer. There's not one for developing right of ways, but there is one at the borough and state level that is available to us to use for those. So that's also the current option that would be available to get those improvements going and on the way. So, and then I just put in here the map of these parcels here for reference, although I think most of us are familiar with where those are. And then you can go through here. These are the full planned unit development codes here, starting on page 14. And I don't want to go. There's a lot of information in here, so I don't want to go through a whole lot of those. I just wanted that to be available so that if people wanted to research and see what they thought might be a useful code for us to, work off of, if there's anything in there. So if anybody has any feedback on those, please let me know. And looks like
I had, this is Randy. I had a question. The parking lot that's next to the boardwalk, is that like a general use parking area, or is it specifically for the people that are on the boardwalk so that they have a place to park?
oh, I wish Heidi was here to answer that question.
Okay, at any
I
rate.
can take a stab at it.
Yeah, I mean, if it, we don't have to answer it today, but I was just thinking if it has something related to what we're talking about, it would be, if we could just examine what that is, because it seems like it is used by the property owners because but it may just be, coincidental that they'll use it and the public uses it.
My understanding is that that is actually the right of way, is that it's pushed over a little bit from where it's
And
actually.
so it's a parking area that's been designated in a right of way, and that type of use is allowable by the
I think so. I would
it's
have
just
to check.
it's a customary
That's
use,
my
so it would be a little bit different than dedicating an existing city lot for that purpose, but
Yeah.
just figured if there was anything we could benchmark to what we've already done.
Looks like we might have lost. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment here.
Oh, and you've got a wood raised hand also.
Yeah,
There's a wood key.
so I believe she's one of the property owners online. You wanna?
Is it, I'm not sure, is it, uh, with the person with the last name of Woodkey, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
Miss Woodkey, are you able to speak?
Do you have to give her permission or? Miss Woodkey, can you hear me? So the mic is muted though. Her mic is muted. Can you unmute her mic? Okay, I think we were having a little trouble there with unmuting the mic. So Miss Woodkey, are you able to, could you say something so if we can see if we can hear you? And I don't know if you have an unmute on your computer where you can unmute yourself. Okay. So we'll try again to ask. Is she raising her hand again, or is that?
The same one. Looks like the hand is no longer raised, so.
Okay, we'll continue, and if you want to speak in the future, if you want to raise your hand, we'll just keep an eye out for you. I'll turn it back over to the city clerk.
So I was just gonna kind of quickly go through. There are other communities all over the state that are doing this kind of, a lot of these planned unit developments and overlay districts and some alternatives to free up the flexibility of their zoning. So this is just some background information from Haynes because they're going through updating that code as well. And their zoning is a little bit more applicable to what we're looking at.
And are you, what page are you on?
Page 36.
Thank you.
As soon as there's that. So this is kind of some good background on their process of what they've gone through and their key concerns for it. And so they are just going through this process as well. And so they have a sample planned unit development code in here as well, but it's not in code yet. So I could provide the code for you. And then the most recent municipality was the city borough of Wrangell that went through this process as well. And so on page 46, there is their full ordinance that has also some fairly applicable standards that we're using for their planned unit developments as well.
Liz, are you planning to do a work session for this, or what's the on the agenda as far as the next steps? I know this is.
So this is kind of the initial research and kind of just trying to get guidance on where to narrow down to and where to explore more to. And likely it will come back to another planning meeting or work session, depending on what the commission decides.
So if we let me just toss this out. So we'll have some preliminary conversations and kind of narrow down what
Mhm.
might be the best thing for Seldovia, and then you could do a draft ordinance, and then we could have a work session and I guess invite the city council to have a discussion about it. I think it seems like when we have the work sessions, that seems to help generate conversation so we can but I think it's like we have to kind of, out of all the things that we're seeing of what kinds of options we have, if maybe on the next commission meeting, we could talk about, like, if people can do research and look at things and say, well, this looks like a good approach for Seldovia, then we could kind of talk about that and kind of get the big picture of what we think would be a good approach. And then maybe if, let's say for March, we could have a draft ordinance to discuss so that we could kind of narrow it down to specifics, but to really look at what would be good for Seldovia so we could work on it in that way.
Could I?
And keep in mind that a lot of this is, we have our new draft comprehensive plan update out for review. So we want to make sure that what we do is kind of talking about going through that alignment, making sure that whatever those overlay districts or plan unit developments or other things that might come out of it are kind of aligning with that plan as well.
Well, I think it would be super helpful to send this information to the property owners who would obviously have a real stake in anything that happens and may have some really good insight as to what they want to do with their properties and, what their hopes and dreams are for them, as well as they're in the first position to make something happen. So I would hope that they would be invited and or given this information via mail or email so that they can participate.
And so I think that can be done. And then I guess one of the sort of scoping decisions is, does it make sense to look at the 12 lots that are in that area? Like, because if we're going to send information to somebody, then we would want to say, well, what would be what would be the potential overlay or PUD? So it's just, so we can, we could say, this is what we might think that it is, and then send it out. And if more discussion comes, it can be adjusted accordingly, but at least it gives everyone a chance to respond if they're interested. So could that be like an action? It's like if the clerk could provide the draft information that we have here to the property owners, specifically in the 12 lots that are there, to say this is something that's under consideration. And we want to make sure that they're aware of the discussion.
We can, I think what gets complicated is we don't necessarily have email addresses for all of those property owners as well, but we can send them a letter.
There are actually 14. I misspoke. So there's 14. And
I think
and
city lots, right? So that was.
I'm not sure. I know that you do have some, so that might be where my number came from.
Yeah, so that would be the only
mean,
thing that is that, like, because
Worst case, you mail it to them.
I could mail them a letter saying to go look at it.
Yeah.
I could do.
Yeah.
So otherwise it'd be a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people outside of those properties, just in the community as a whole, that are really interested in that, in this conversation as well. And this is going to be policy, the overlay district, if it goes that route, might be for just this area, but it's an overall discussion that, could be used for other areas as we get into kind of the zoning.
So we would go through our normal public notice, and we just do a specific targeted communication with the property owners so that so we're sure that they're aware of it. And then that would fulfill our obligation to let the community know.
Well, I think that the surrounding property owners, I know anytime there's a variance or something like that, it's 500 feet or something like that within that frame. And so a letter to all of those folks just saying this is on the agenda. If you have any comments, might be really helpful, might get some really good perspective, because they see traffic around there. They know what's happening in the area, and they know how it could impact them. And I think that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And then I'm just wanted to check in with Commissioner Kroll. Do you have any feedback on the discussion about so far?
I think we need to hear more from the landowners.
Okay, thank you. And then Commissioner Ryan, do you have any feedback so far?
I guess it's kind of along the lines of my first thought of the PUD. It seems like the only if all 14 lots were somehow united, and that, so you're planning out the whole area. So maybe the transition scheme or an overlay district is more applicable to this, so that each individual landowner is more treated uniquely rather than forming a, homeowners association kind of thing for that area. That's all I'm thinking about right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then just to bring back to the information provided, one of the other one is the city of Homer does have a policy regarding residential holding tanks. So I just kind of wanted to bring up that to the attention of everybody, what their rules are. And they essentially have holding tanks that they will, through a private contractor, allow them to deposit within the city sewage sanitation system. I don't necessarily know that we're, as a city, prepared to take that on, but I think it's worth being part of the conversation. If anybody has any feedback on whether or not that is an alternative that the residents want to use.
I know that our city system is maxed out, but at the same time, these are property owners within the city limits that should be considered as anything we can do to help. I mean, I think even with the RV park, people ask me all the time about a place to empty. There's a whole different subject, but bringing that up, I think that's something it's worth considering for helping people to come to Seldovia, come to the RV park, develop property, to find a way that the city's system can meet that need. I think it's super important. Yeah.
And on that note, that since we do have that lift station fixed now, there is I think it costs $52.50 in the code. And you'd have to coordinate with Public Works, but you can come and dump at that station now. It's back in our fee schedule since with the fix of that, fix of that lift station. So
That's awesome. I have someone to call right now.
and it's a little bit more costly than in Homer or something, but it is an option that that is now available again. It's great. Yeah, so you can see what their policy is regarding the holding tanks, and how they do it in Homer is that they pay for that portion of the utility as if they were a utility customer, but they have a private person that will come and pump it, and then they'll deposit it in the septic station. So I think that would be number one, what Ms. Joseph said with the access, that would be kind of limiting probably for that, unless there was kind of a fairly developed road access to get a pumping service up there. But if the access was developed and it was still lacking water and sewer, that would be, potentially an option. And then this is just a little piece of options for installing or upgrading a septic system. So this is just kind of taking a little bit of ADEC and what they require as initial designs, install contracts, engineers, etc. So people can get some idea of where that, because without having any specifications in our code about what is allowed for a certified septic, it does default to the ADEC Division of Water for their approved septic. And then I've just included in here our full Title 13, which is our utility code in here. And it'll talk about the certified septic in there as well. And then this has for the Seldovia water utility extension of service. So it goes into what's currently in our code about the extension of service, main extensions within city limits will be by the creation of a special improvement district pursuant to this Alaska statute code, or by total contribution of payment in lieu of assessment. So this is just our local code on creation of those assessment districts for reference here. I've also in the back of this included the state statute as well. So. And then the other option, of course, now I just wanted to point out is that there is, the variance option that does exist currently to grant a variance for those setback conditions. So I just wanted to include a little bit of background on this is our variance code. You'll see in here is the same, that 500. I think it's 200 feet. I would have to check for notification, but this is a variance application that can be filed with the city manager. Here and the procedures for that. And then here on the following page, you'll see Alaska statutes for special assessments. We do not have one for access and roadways, so we would be relying on the Alaska statutes to develop a special assessment district for right-of-ways. So I'll stop sharing for the moment and then turn back over to see if there's any more comments or feedback from the commission.
Okay, any comments from Commissioner Ryan? Any sort of direction for what should be included or anything else for the future discussion?
No, I don't have anything at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And then Commissioner Kroll, do you have any other thoughts in terms of about the future direction or any of the things that we've been talking about just recently?
No, I don't.
Alrighty, thank you. And Ms. Chissis, do you have any further comments on the process so far?
I don't think so. I think this is a great start to a conversation that's going to hopefully end up in a great result for property owners and city alike. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. And then we'll go back to the agenda and
And then if, I know this is a lot of information, so I was gonna say if commissioners want to read through and have more feedback, if they want to send that
Yeah.
along and
Mhm.
see
before the next meeting.
before the next
Yeah.
meeting.
And also, this is just this if you want to provide additional comments before the next meeting, then we can. So I think if we would still be in the conversation mode for the February meeting, and then
Mhm.
by that time, perhaps we would be ready to have direction for creating an ordinance for the March meeting for a workshop discussion.
Mhm.
Okay,
And then, I mean, if this is something that the commission would like to do a standalone work session on, we can do that as well.
okay,
Kind of, just kind of seeking the direction for where the commission wants to see our time, effort put into researching.
okay. Thank you. Thank you
I
very much.
believe I have all the emails of all the property owners in that district if you need them.
So, so then, that brings us up to, staff reports. And so I'll turn it back over to the city clerk.
We do. Reshare my screen here. So I just kind of wanted to go through on the beginning part here, just say that we do have 3 ordinances that have gone through and been passed that came through the planning commission. And so I just wanted to kind of give some update on that and make sure you know where these processes that we've all started have ended up. So we have ordinance 2607, which was adopted on November 24th, and that is the abatement for public nuisances and abandoned property. And this is on page 94. For those following along on paper. So I just, in the packet is just the ordinances so that you can kind of see what the final adoption was here. And then ordinance 2608, which was the adoption of the amended building code and site development standards, as well as a new building permit application. So that was also adopted on December 15th. And along with that, there's a third ordinance that is a fee schedule amendment. And with the addition and the adoption of the site development permit application and building standards, there was needed to be a fee set for the site development only permit, as well as for the demolition of buildings. So you can see here that ordinance was passed, and you can see the fees that were adopted here. I just wanted to bring that up. So for building and site development permit, it's for over 400 square feet of demolition, it would cost $50, which is what the council thought seemed to be reasonable, and there would be no fee for under 400 square feet. There would be similar to the building permit flow chart that we have for under 100 square feet. There will be a verification of that as well. And then $100 for purely site development projects that don't have structures on them. Well. And then you'll see there is, we did also add a fee for abatement of junk property per the new abatement ordinance. So if there is happens to be where the city does have to abate some of that junk property, there is the same charge as it is for impounding vehicles, boat trailers and such. So those were passed as well. So I just wanted to let the commission know that and where your work has ended up, because I know you guys have spent many, many hours on that. I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions on those ordinances.
Just thank you for all the hard work from everybody.
So on the next thing we have is the comprehensive plan update. So the final draft has been published and is out for public review. I do have a couple of copies in the room here if people are interested. And that public comment period is open and will be closed February 2nd. And we will have an in-person meeting with Britta and I believe Danielle from the Alaska Municipal League are going to come back down and present that draft and take comments in person and feedback. And that is going to be on January 14th. So a week from today in this room.
Okay.
We'll have a public meeting that will go down. She's promised to bring snacks. So if that encourages people to. But that draft is available. It's on our homepage. It is on the Seldovia Comprehensive Plan page. And if people need or want printed copies of that, we can provide that as well. You can email public comments to me at cityclerk@cityofseldovia.com. They can be sent by mail or they can be dropped off at the office as well. And once that public comment period closes, that will be incorporated. And if there are changes to be made, that new one will come to the commission and council before approval on that. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on the comprehensive plan draft so far. It's very pretty. I did include it in the packet, but it is online on our homepage and I can email it out individually to anybody that is interested. And the rest, we have our upcoming and open commission business. So I'll just kind of go through those. There has not been any more movement on Cedar Street extension. I've not heard from that property owner. Do you have any updates on that, Commissioner Street? No?
I do not.
Okay. All right, and the planning website updates are ongoing now that the ordinances have been adopted and the new codes have been codified for the central business districts.
Liz, Can I make a request with the ordinance or the codes that they terminate at the end of a page and start at a new page? Because very often we try to send something to somebody, a portion, not the whole code, but a conditional use or zoning section, things like that. And it'd be nice if you could say page 2 through 4, and it was not starting at halfway down page 2 and still part of something else, or the land use is part, you know what I mean? To make them individual. I don't know if that's a bunch of waste of paper, but most people view online.
Let's look at the code book
Okay.
offline afterwards and see if that makes sense or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but there is, I'm working on kind of some updates to our website. We are going to be probably switching that to a new platform. So I don't know how much more updates I'm going to make at this point in time, but at least clarifying what we have on there as well. And then trying to get more of a user-friendly model of the land use table on there so that you can see by zone and by district. So. The administrative public hearing ordinance, I believe that city manager Gagel is talking to legal, and I'm not sure where that one is at, so she'll have to give an update on that at that time. And the communications tower draft ordinance is still on there, and been working on this one first, so we haven't really started that one, but is that something that we would want to move up in the priority list for the commission?
Any feedback from Commissioner Kroll? Do you have any feedback on where the priority for the tower ordinance should be?
Not right now, no.
Okay, and Commissioner Ryan, do you have any feedback on priority on the tower ordinance?
I think until it's established, we can just work through the variance procedures and process.
Okay,
And then there was a note from city manager Gagel on adding accessory dwelling units to the upcoming or open commission business. And I just wanted to check and see if that was something that I missed from not being at the last meeting.
yes, so we had discussed it, and I think it was something else that we could add to the I guess both research and I think with the housing plan being a priority, that might be able to be combined with that as well. So I guess that could be added to the list, and then we can work on that. And maybe perhaps an approach would be to, since we're working on this alternative uses, to focus, because we'll have the comprehensive plan taking up space in our discussions, and then we'll have this alternative use discussion. And so perhaps we should focus on those two things and kind of get them finished, get them finished out, and then we can add the others in after that, just from a logistics standpoint. That keeps us focused and completing, and then we can move on to the other things.
And is there any other upcoming or open commission business that we're missing from this list? We're hoping to keep track of it this time.
Okay. And if I'll just ask if there's any other issues that anyone is aware of, if you could just speak up, just let us know right now, and then if not, we'll just move on to the next item. Okay.
All right, so the next item is, since Heidi is not here tonight, she's home with her family. We have, in lieu of a city manager's verbal update, we have this newsletter that I've become very fond of here. So these are, we're hoping to get out once a quarter. So this is the January one. And we'll just go through, it's got some quick updates on it. The 2026 to 2031 capital improvement plan was adopted by the Seldovia City Council. And these are the legislative priorities that they had involved. The heavy equipment complex with an archival storage that's out of the inundation zone was moved up in priority. The small boat harbor float improvements planning project, a skid steer with a forklift and brush hog, and a backhoe replacement were also listed as legislative priorities. And they adopted their council priorities as well. And those are pretty similar to last year. See those here. Let me see. Can flip that. I don't know if I can flip that here. But it's still in the same format here, improving city finances, capital projects, and capital improvement plan goals and priorities. They did add in on improving city finances, developing a cash flow management plan. So that was a new one that was added on there. And the 2014 Seldovia Comprehensive Plan update is still on there. So hopefully maybe next year that can be renewed. In addition to housing needs assessment to identify community needs and the role of the city. And so for those council champions, we have Councilmember Keithley and Councilmember Coleman, and Commissioner Sweet was put on there as well. This is one of the issues that she has been working hard on as well. And here is a nice photo of our new council members, Councilmembers Taylor and Coleman at our training in Anchorage at the Alaska Municipal League, which is very informative. And I think they had a really good time up there. And Commissioner Sweet, next year, if you want to try to make the effort to come up, let have you. There's just a little bit about what's happening here. We had a great volunteer appreciation meal here where we had close to 50 people, everybody who volunteered for the fire department, the cemetery volunteers, the library, the SOC, our council members, our commissioners, and we did a big turkey and ham dinner here for the holidays. You can still see some of the decorations around here that haven't taken down yet. And there's this is our list of ongoing grants and projects. The city has 13 open grants totaling $10,941,537 in award funding. And so those projects include a stormwater management project. There's a water and sewer overview project, the Jackoff Bay Dock upland, the dock replacement, the raw water transmission line, the Seldovia fuel and lube roof, and there's a couple of other these Alaska Municipal League cohort projects that we're part of. And there's a great picture of our new street sweeper as well. So we're very excited to have that ready for when the time comes for that. And I'm just gonna plug that we have a planning commission vacancy still, if there's anybody that might be interested in the room or online, or your friends. And I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that people have from that newsletter or figure out the city possible in Heidi's absence. The other thing that was added on there was this heat pump incentive program. So we wanted to make sure people were aware of that as well. So that's included in the newsletter. So that's the last page. Does anybody have any questions about the newsletter or
and on the heat pump, they're electrically powered, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I don't know too much about them. I know we have community members who are pretty expert in their advice on them. But these are qualified coastal communities. There's a program for them. And I think the idea was to get enough people in Seldovia where it might make economical sense to get one group of people to come in and
Okay.
support them. So if anybody is interested in that and wants to sign up for it, you can scan this QR code here for more information. I know that Heidi has a little bit more information that she got and she's applied for it as well, so we can reach out if anybody has any questions. We can try to help facilitate some answers on those. This is an EPA project and it's funded through the Southeast Conference. They have a grant and that covers coastal communities and we're one of them. That's all I got.
Alrighty, and then, so then, moving along, informational items not requiring action.
We do not have any of those at the time. I did want to make a plug for that comprehensive plan.
For the-
In-person meeting next Wednesday. It's
Okay,
gonna be January 14th. And that flyer,
and what time is that?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
right here in this room.
Okay, same time, same station,
Same time, same
Next week.
place. There will be snack.
plus snacks, okay. And then are there any comments from the public?
I'd just like to say thank you for doing all the work and research and helping to find a solution for this issue we discussed this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. And any comments from the commissioners, Commissioner Kroll, do you have any final comments?
No, I was just looking at those heat pumps.
Okay. Thank you. And then Commissioner Ryan, do you have any final comments?
No, just a lot of information to try and wrap my brain around. Thanks for putting it all out there.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. And then, so then that takes us to, our next meeting will be, on February 4th. And, so look forward to seeing you here then. And, motion to adjourn. Do I do a motion? I always get.
We need a motion to adjourn
Motion
in a
to-
second.
Okay, what?
We do need a motion to adjourn.
And a second. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn and a second. So
Motion to adjourn.
second,
Oh, yeah, I can second that.
and then we don't have to take a roll call on this or do.
No, if there's no objection, we will be adjourned.
Okay, no objection. We are adjourned and it is 7:09 PM. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.